Please welcome Tim Wagner.
Thank you. I have to share this. My good friend and rebel rouser, Ashley Anderson, is passing these bottles around inside to the show participants, and it is OFIS processed water, which comes from the purest groundwater drawn from beneath modern oil sands tailings. And they're drinking it inside. Isn't that lovely? Thank you all for this tremendous effort. When we get 200 people out on a day like today, I'm thrilled. This is awesome. Thank you so much. So we can be heard by those inside who are plotting Utah's next public lands dirty energy exploit. Give yourselves a loud round of applause and shouts. Yeah! Thank you. Awesome. As we gather today in front of this remarkable building that ironically has on it the largest solar application in the state of Utah, in this remarkable city, in this equally remarkable setting with the Wasatch Mountains that sometimes we can barely see because of dirty air due to our addiction to fossil fuels, and with all of this going on, out there well beyond the confines of Salt Lake County lies some of the most remarkable and stunning lands on the face of the planet. Do you agree? Yes. Millions and millions of acres of lands owned by us, you and me and your neighbors and your relatives in Minnesota, in Pennsylvania, in California, and everywhere across this great nation. Millions of acres of publicly owned lands that serves as the West watershed, that serve home to thousands of species of wildlife and plants, that serve as a destination for millions of visitors from all over the world, that serve as a place of recreation, solitude, or spiritual and physical renewal for all Utahns and for all Americans. Those lands that serve as a huge part of the state's economy, that serve as the backbone for this great state's identity, these lands lie there silently, giving and giving and giving, with no voice but you and me. These lands, such as the remarkable Tavaputs Plateau, east of the Book Cliffs, or Hatch Point, or Hardstraw, or Robbers Roost, and west and south of Moab, as part of the proposed Greater Canyonlands National Monument, yes, or the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument. These are all lands that give Utahns the ability to say, yes, this is my place, my state, and this is why I choose to live here, purchase my home, raise my family, spend my money, and contribute to the state's economy. These lands are mine, and these lands are who I am. Yet, inside this remarkable convention center, topped with solar power, at this moment, our governor is meeting with dirty energy companies as they plot out their next strategy for gaining access to those places I mentioned, and hundreds like them. Yes. They're plotting in order to drill, to mine, to build pipelines, roads, and everything that is necessary to turn Utah's public lands into a free-for-all industrial zone, all for one thing: money. The governor's own plan to turn nearly 30 million acres of federal lands owned by us over to the state because, quote, we can manage these lands better than the federal government, they say, is nothing more than a real land grab. Let me say this again. This is a real land grab. The idea of taking millions of acres of public lands and turning them over to a state that can't even find enough money to manage the state parks, that is a land grab. Because if the state would actually obtain title to those millions of acres, once the federal land management agencies are out of the way, who, by the way, spends about $620 million every year just to manage those lands in the state of Utah, those lands will then go on the auction block for private interest, either through bargain basement leases or sales. That's a land grab because once the private sector gains title, they become locked up. Don't believe me? Turn the page. Don't believe me? Visit Texas or even most states east of the 100th meridian where public lands largely do not exist except for state parks. So when you hear the governor or anyone else, for that matter, say that protected public lands are a land grab, all you need to say is, no, a land grab is when lands that I used to enjoy with my family are now gated with a sign that says private property owned by ABC Oil. That's partly what this Energy Summit is about. It's about gaining access for the few, stopping access for the public. It's about dirty energy companies having more say over our public lands than you and me. It's about the governor taking the multiple sources of values, i.e. recreation, health, quality of life, you name it, and the associated revenues that we contribute to the state's identity and economy, and pouring all those values and money into one giant funnel so they can be grabbed by a handful of companies who contribute to Gary Herbert's re-election campaign. To quote the once famous presidential candidate Ross Perot, that's a giant sucking sound we cannot afford to hear. I can hear our critics now when they ask, but how did all you tree huggers get down to that salt palace today? Or how are you powering your home or your business? Yes, most of us use dirty energy in our everyday lives, but it's the big money from fossil fuels and dirty energy and a governor who only cares about short-term money and not about our lungs that keeps every one of us addicted to dirty energy with little else in terms of viable options. That is why we need leadership on this issue now. Our message today is very clear. Governor Herbert, today Utahns all across the state are calling you out for failed leadership when it comes to the state's energy policies. Please don't sugarcoat what you were doing today by throwing out a couple of token presentations on clean energy. Utahns are smarter than that. Your actions speak much louder than your words. We will not stand by while you sell our values to the highest dirty energy bidder. You have choices. We will support you if you make the right choices, but those choices are ones that are the best for all, for the long term, that take true leadership. We want to see that leadership today, tomorrow. As Utahns who contribute to this great state in many, many ways, we deserve nothing less. Thank you.